This video is going to be a quick demonstration of how to set up a domain controller using Windows Server 2019 in VMware. So for the sake of time, I've done fresh install of Windows Server 2019 and a fresh install of Windows 10 on the left and right here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to set up my network. This is very important. So first thing I'm going to do here is go to Edit and then Virtual Network Editor. And I'm going to click Change Settings here and click Yes to the UAC prompt. And I'm going to be using VMnet 8. You can use whatever you want, but I'll be using VMnet 8. Now, what you need to do is you need to set up a subnet with 3 usable addresses. One for the DC, one for the client, and one for the default gateway. Now I'm going to use 192.168.150 with a 24-bit mask, which should give me 254 usable IP addresses, which is way more than enough. So you're going to want to note down your subnet, your mask, and you want to click NAT settings here, and you want to also take note of the gateway IP. So once you've got your virtual networking done, what you're going to do is you're going to right click on your DC, head on over to settings, and we want to click on the network adapter. And we want to make sure that the network adapter is in the virtual network that we just set up. So that would be VMnet 8. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, hit OK. And I'm going to do the same thing with the clients because they have to be in the same subnet. So custom, VMnet 8, OK. And next, I'm going to go ahead and log in to the domain controller. And I'm using a username and password that I configured when I installed it off camera. So once Windows Server loads, we're greeted with the server manager. So we're going to head over to local server, and I want to change the computer name to reflect what I have in VMware. So I'm going to click on this link here, and I'm going to hit change, and then I'm going to call this DC-1. I'm going to go to OK. Hit OK again, close, and I'll do a restart. All right, so once we're back at the login screen, we'll go ahead and log in as our local administrator again. And the next thing I want to do is I want to configure my IP addressing. So what I'll do is I'll click on local server, and then I'll click on the link next to Ethernet 0. Then I'll right click on the Ethernet 0 interface, go to properties, and then I'm going to highlight Internet Protocol version 4 and then click on properties again. And we're going to give this a static IP. Now, if you remember, the default gateway IP in our virtual network was 192.168.150.2. So we're going to have to use that here. 192.168.150.2. I'm going to use the next address for the address of this domain controller here. So 192.168.150.3. And that should automatically populate with a 24-bit mask, which it does. And then for preferred DNS server, I'm going to use the same IP that I'm giving this server here. So 192.168.150.3. Hit OK, close. And now I want to install the domain controller role on the server. Now to do that, I'm going to go to Manage, then Add Roles and Features. I'm going to hit Next. Now on the roles page, I want to select Active Directory Domain Services. Hit Add Features. Next. Next. Then Install. Now a few minutes later, you should get a message that says Installation succeeded on DC-1. Now, if you look down here, there is a link that says Promote this server to a domain controller. That's the link that we need to click. Now, in this case, we don't have a forest created. So we're going to select Add a New Forest. And then we're going to come up with our domain name. You can name this whatever you want. I'm going to go with homelab.local. Then I'm going to hit Next. Now I have to come up with a directory services restore mode password. So I'll give that a password. Okay, I'm going to select the defaults for most of this. And then I'm going to click install. So once our installation is complete, the server is going to reboot on its own and we'll be back at the login screen. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. Now when Server Manager launches, I'm going to verify that we can see our domain here by clicking local server, and there it is, homelab.local. We can also verify our IP addressing here as well, and our computer name is DC1, which is what we wanted. So from the server side, we have one more thing to do. Now, we have to create a user account for our client so he can sign into the domain. So to do that, we click on Tools, and we're going to go to Active Directory, Users and Computers. We're going to expand this domain. We're going to right-click on Users, select New, and then User. And then here we can assign our username and our login name. So I'm going to go with James Bond with a login name of jbond. I'm going to deselect user must change password at next logon and select password never expires. Then I'm going to go ahead and give James Bond a password. Hit next, finish. And I'm just going to make sure that this user was created successfully. And there he is. So we're now ready to configure the client. So with our domain controller still running, I'm going to go over to the client machine and I'm going to log in with a local account that I created while installing Windows. Now from the client desktop, I'm going to go ahead and rename this computer to CLI1. So I'll right click on Start, I'll go to System, and then I'm going to click Rename this PC. I'm going to type in CLI1, next. And then I'm going to go ahead and restart now. So now that we're logged into the client, we need to configure the networking. So we're going to right click on this little globe icon and we're going to open network and internet settings. Now if I scroll down a little bit, I should see change adapter options. And I'm going to right click on our Ethernet 0 interface and select properties. Then I'm going to highlight Internet Protocol version 4 and hit properties again. And I'm going to go ahead and configure a static IP on this computer. So I'm going to click use the following IP address. Now if you recall, the IP address for the domain controller was 192.168.150.3. So I'm going to use the next one up, which is 4 for this one. So 192.168.150.4. Now the subnet mask should auto-populate with a 24-bit mask, and the default gateway is going to be the same one that we noted down at the beginning of the video. So that was 192.168.150.2. Now for DNS server, this is very important. You need to use the IP address of the domain controller. So that is 192.168.150.3. Next, we have to connect the computer to the domain. Now, in order to do this, we have to right click on the Windows button, then go to System. If I scroll down a little bit here, I should see Advanced System Settings. We need to click that. Then we have to select the Computer Name tab, and then hit Change. Now in this screen, we're going to click Domain, and I'm going to type in the domain that we created when we were setting up our domain controller. And that would be homelab.local. Now you can see it's asking me for credentials. These credentials are going to be the administrator account of the domain controller. So administrator, and then the password we configured for the administrator on the domain controller. All right, you can see it says welcome to the homelab.local domain. Okay. And it's telling us we need to restart for the changes to apply. So we're going to do that. Okay, so now we're back at the client login screen, but this time we're not going to use the local account. We're going to use the account that we created on the domain controller. So I'm going to go to Other User, and you should see here that it says Sign into Home Lab, which is our domain. So I'm going to type in jbond, and I'm going to use the password that I assigned to Mr. Bond. Okay, so we've successfully logged into our domain user, James Bond, but to verify that, we're going to open up CMD, and I'm going to type in who am I. Now here we can see that we're logged into the Home Lab domain as jbond. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for future content.